This meeting is being recorded.
Hello and welcome to the Book and Bean podcast. My name is Majesta Dawn. I'll be your host today, author of the book Supernatural Supermom, which is being released on June 10th and is available for pre-order on Amazon now. And with me today, we have a very special guest. We have Somer with us. She's working on her book Intense, which will be released in September. Hi, Somer.
Hi there.
Wonderful. And of course, this is the Book and Bean podcast. So we start by talking about what we're drinking. I'm back to one of my favorite cups because it's my travel mug. It's Hocus Pocus Time Witches, and it's got the cast of Hocus Pocus. I love all things witchy. I love your mug. Cat Mom, what are you drinking today?
I'm drinking a typical breakfast tea.
Breakfast tea. Wonderful. Wonderful. So are you, in fact, a cat mom? Do you have cats?
I have three.
Our fur babies. Our fur babies are such a part of our family. I have 3 dogs. Yeah. I don't have any cats, but I have 3 dogs.
Brilliant. I did have a dog once.
Really? Oh, now have you worked your cats into any of the books you've written or any of your writing before?
Not yet, but I am planning to. It just takes a bit of time to try and figure out where they can be placed. That's going to work.
Yeah, my main character, of course, she's a witch, and witches always have familiars. Everybody always thinks about witches as having a black cat, right? Mm-hmm. And instead she has a white chihuahua that's a one-eyed white chihuahua named Belle, who's like 16 years old, I have a white chihuahua who is actually, she's 17 now. And she does in fact have one eye, old girl, but yeah, her attitude is portrayed very accurately in the book.
Love it. Brilliant.
Wonderful. So first off, I want to start talking. I know your book's being released in September, and this summer is when you get to work on the editing process, which we will definitely dive in and have a conversation about that, because I know that can always be a struggle. But tell me, what was it that inspired you to write Intense? Or first off, give us a quick little blurb, like kind of tell us what Intense is about, and then we'll dive into your inspiration.
Okay, so Intense is about this normal girl in her early 20s, and she's in a society that doesn't even recognize her existence. She has no rights because she has powers, so they have no rights as powers, and she's on this path to redemption because she chose herself over her friends, and that meant leaving them behind. Mm-hmm. So she, instead of escaping with her friends from the institution that they were being held in, she escapes without them. So the very start of the story is her coming to terms with that massive mistake that she's kind of made and learning to live in a society that doesn't recognize her. She can't even have electricity because she can't have a name. So it's all about her kind of discovering herself and her powers and growing.
Wow.
So that's what really draws me to this book, is the fact that I'm in my early 20s. So I really personally connect with the main character.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think no matter if we set out with the intention to do it or not, our main characters, they have so much of ourselves in them. We can't help it. Right?
Definitely.
And it's a very coming of age thing too. I mean, thinking about back to my early 20s, I'm not going to tell you how long ago that was. It is a time too where you move on from friendships. Maybe some of those friendships that you had all through from the time you got into kindergarten, your first elementary school years, all the way through high school. And then you're leaving those friends behind to go to college. And it can be a hard thing to process, kind of leaving those friends and going on and finding yourself. Who are you 100%. When you're outside of your normal friend group, right?
100%.
But your story has a bit of a dystopian feel, right? So
set in London, where these entities keep appearing out of nowhere. So the government keeps these powered people with no rights to fight them, to reduce their population and get rid of the entities. So it's this kind of 2 birds, 1 stone outlook in the government's eyes.
Wow. That's so interesting. So what was it that inspired you to start working on this book, to set down? Like, was it something that you'd always said, I want to write a book one day? Or was it just like the story popped in your head and you just had to get it on the page, and before you knew it, you had a book?
Well, it was last March. and it was during the second lockdown of England, which was really stressful. And I was kind of going through this phase in my life where I was healing from everything I'd buried and ignored. So I just released a poetry book then. And then I thought, I want to make a character that's messy. I want to make a character that's really messy. Because as much as, like, Hunger Games is one of my favorite series, but as much as I love Katniss, she seems to have it together a lot more than I would in that situation. And that's what Urza is about, my main character. She is messy. She's got anger issues and she's got anxiety and she has no idea what she's doing. And that's what I wanted to write. I wanted to write somewhere where you can relate to it. Because for me, I read all these dystopian books. I'm like, that's great, but I'd have a meltdown in that situation.
Yes, yes, it's so true. And that's something that, as we're starting to bring more awareness and talk about real people and mental health and anxiety, which a ton of people struggle with, it's so common, myself included. But I don't see myself as the heroine in any of the books that I read, right? It's not out there. So that's amazing that your main character, your heroine, is going to have those real issues. And not only is she overcoming this crazy dystopian reality, but she's also got real human issues, right?
Exactly. So that's what drew me to starting it, because I just thought, I really want to make a messy character who's a woman as well. Because some of the women in the stories are so strong and amazing, but I want to see the other side of it. I want to see them with anger issues. I want to see them keep repeating the same mistakes and realizing I can't go on like this. I think that's a lot more relatable in our society. And that was my plan. And then it just became this whole world with different characters. And I started publishing it on Web Novel, and it's got 15,000 views there. And, you know, it was this shock of, wow, people want to read this, you know. For me, at the time, it was just an outlet. And then it kind of created this whole world of, I need to go back to the world. I need to carry on. I need to do this. And now it's going to be a whole trilogy. So yeah, it started off with just, I want to relate to a character. I want them to be messy. And now it's, wow, okay, there's a trilogy coming out and everyone likes her.
That's amazing. It's so funny how I love that you said you started writing because you were working through your own stuff. You were healing. That's what made me start my book. It was an outlet, right? It was a way to get things out that were trapped in my head. And instead of me having to deal with it, my main character could just deal with it in her way, right? But it felt like it was getting out there. And then it became its own world. It's leading to other books. And it's so weird how sometimes once we start creating these characters just for ourselves and then we start to put them out there, they take on lives of their own.
Exactly. It's so weird. But I think that's the beauty of it. Because when you write, you create people, you know, you're God in that situation. And I think my favorite thing about literature is it's forever. It's always out there. Do you know what I mean? So as soon as you put something out there, that's it. Your character will always exist. And that to me is the beauty of it.
It's so true. And I feel like this should be a quote somewhere. If this is not on your website already, put it, unless you stole it from someone else, let's give them credit. But you said, when you write, you're creating a person, you're God in that situation. I've never felt more powerful as an author.
Sorry, I'm not arrogant. I just thought.
No, I love it. I love it because it's true. You're right. Like it gives you the sense of control that you can, and it's, but isn't it odd? I always find it odd that even though we have the control, you'd think that you'd make everything a happy ending. Like if I had control of everything in the world, I'd make everything go perfect and smooth. But when we have control of our characters, sometimes we tend to, the story leads us to where it's not always a happy ending, or there's parts that rip our hearts out and make us cry.
Exactly. It's kind of like we put our trauma in the characters. So we can kind of look at it and be like, it's not a happy ending, but they survived.
Yeah, they made it through. And that's what's relatable, right? Because real life isn't always rainbows and butterflies. There is the trauma, there is the problems, the issues, but we can still survive them, right? We can still have our problems, our damage, our trauma, and make it out alive.
So true though.
Absolutely. So now, are you working with a publisher? Are you indie publishing? Like, what are your plans to get your book out there?
I'm an indie. Nice. And I do prefer it that way. So I'm an indie author. I started publishing last year, as I said. I've done a poetry book and a short fantasy book already, but Intensive's the big one. So Intensive's a project that I've been sitting on for a while now. That's the one I'm so excited about to get out there, because that's the one that I feel the most accomplished for, because it's such a big story and it's such a unique and relatable story. So Intense is the really, really important one to me. 100% indie author all the way.
Wonderful. And it's so amazing the world we have now with Book Talk. I know we talk about this a lot on our podcast. Most of the authors that I interview on this podcast I've met through Book Talk. It's a wonderful community, but there's a newfound respect and support for indie authors now.
100%.
Yeah, because not only are you an author and a writer, you're an editor, you're a business person, you're a marketer. You have to be all the pieces of the business to get your book out there. Well, it's wonderful. So you are getting ready to spend the summer diving into the editing process. What are you an author that absolutely hates the editing process and it's painful, or do you quite enjoy it?
I hate it. It's painful. It's one of these things when I write that I'm like, I really want to get the story out there, but I can't stand editing. So it's like me and my friend who's also a writer, we kind of exchange notes. So we just sit in our depression because we have to edit this whole story. I love seeing the finished product, and I love when I can grow my characters through editing. But the actual editing process of going through every line, every page, every story arc and trying to correct it or improve it is very stressful. Very stressful.
Oh, I understand. I am not one who enjoys editing either. Like, to me, that's the most overwhelming part. And having to go line by line. Do you give yourself a break? Do you walk away from your work once you've completed that first draft? Do you have to walk away for a couple of weeks before you come back to edit?
I mean, luckily for me, I'm in university, so I was forced to take a break from the first draft and study. So luckily for me, that kind of forced me to study. But now, after my assignments are done, which are very soon, I'll be back in there and I'm dreading it. I'm dreading it because I know it's coming.
I'd rather take finals and do assignments than edit, right?
Yep, honestly, 100%.
Too funny. So that gives everyone some idea of how tough the editing process can be, for sure. But once it's done, then you get to like the cover reveals and releasing it, and so worth it.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's your book baby, right?
It's my book baby. Yes,
wonderful.
100%.
So I know you said that this book is going to be a trilogy. Do you have ideas? And the first draft of the first story is already done, and we're coming up on editing. Do you have ideas on where book 2 is going to lead already? And book 3, like, are you a plotter or pantser? Like, do you know where it's going, or you're just letting it?
A combination, because I kind of have an idea of where it's going, but I don't like to set anything in stone. I will say though that the main character is going to suffer a lot more in book 2.
Really? Suffer even more?
Yeah. Because it's going to be her bossing up, really. She's going to be direct in contact. She won't be able to run away from anything. She won't be able to just fight her way out of the situation. She's going to have to use her brain and her emotions. And that's going to be the tough thing for Urza, because she thinks on the spot. She's impulsive. In my mind, she's a fire sign like me, because she doesn't think, she just reacts. So book 2, she's going to suffer a lot more, I'm afraid to say.
But that's part of growth, right? Like that almost has to happen when you like in book 1, we meet the character for who they are, where they're at right now, and we know growth is painful, it's messy, and they're gonna have to go through that to get to those important lessons they'll probably need for book 3, right?
Exactly. Yep, 100%.
Now, something that a lot of authors tell me is they get on a roll with a series, right? Maybe they didn't even set out intending to make like a trilogy or a series, but they get stuck in this world, and then all of a sudden a random other book idea for a completely different series or novel will be like, hey, you should write me. Do you ever have that problem, or are you completely focused on?
100%. I mean, I'm writing 3 other books right now at the same time.
So you definitely
Because
have that problem.
yeah, because I have an idea and then my heart gets set on it and then I get inspired by everything and it just becomes this whole roller coaster of, okay, what do I prioritize? Where am I going? Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm quite bad at that. I mean, my last story, Nature's Wrath, was I got inspired by a tree and that was it. That was
That's all
it.
it
It
took.
was all the roll. That's all it took. And I was on the ball.
That's a
So
wonderful. So those stories, do you release those? Do you publish? I know you said you've used web novel before to get your books out there. Is that where you
so
release all your work or?
um I'm mainly on Amazon, to be honest. I mean, a web novel was intense because that's what kind of inspired me to carry on writing, is updating it every week on that web novel and carrying on. But with Nature's Wrath, it was I want to show people my Arabic culture because I'm Palestinian. And then it kind of became this short fantasy world about a tree woman and a flame man and and it just kind of carried on. So that is on Amazon. It's only a short story, but a lot of like world building had to go into that because I don't speak fluent Arabic, so I had to run by my Arabic nan and say, "Oh, is this what it means? Is this what it means?" And it was very stressful, but I did love it.
It took a lot of research. It wasn't one that you could just,
Oh yeah,
that's
no,
wonderful. And I know you said that you've released a poetry book as well. I think most authors I feel like that I talk to start or dabble in poetry. Like
yeah,
it's from a young age, even if we don't grow up saying I want to be an author,
yeah,
it's poetry is a way to vent, right?
yeah. I mean, I used to write songs when I was 7 because I
Mhm.
liked writing songs, and then I went to poetry because I enjoy singing now and again. So I used to write song lyrics, and then it became, well, whenever I get a good thought, let's put it in a book and write poetry, and then it just kind of grew. So originally it started from lyrics because I loved singing. I loved camp rock, High School Musical.
Yes.
That was my generation.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and most authors I think are artistic in some other way, right? Like I can't sing to save me, but I love music. Like when you're creative like that, you tend to appreciate all types of art,
Yeah,
right? And have other
really
outlets
into
for it.
all the areas.
Mhm.
100%.
Absolutely. So I guess the biggest thing is where can people follow you? Because since we are going to be waiting until September for Intense, I know people are going to want updates on how it's going,
Yep.
when it's going to be available for pre-order, where we can get your other work, short stories and poetry. Where's the best place to follow you and know where to find your work?
So the best place to follow me is on BookTok because I love talking to the readers there. I love talking to other authors there. I'm also on Instagram as well. That's kind of it, apart from my website, which should still be up. But other than that, I'm mainly on BookTok because I just love the people. Like I find myself coming back each day and talking to people and finding new books from indie authors to read. And I've got friends now as well because I've met so many amazing people through writing and books that I come back to talk to them. So definitely BookTok.
I agree. It's become my favorite community by far. I have the Instagram, I have the Facebook page, which I like. I feel like I have to update, and the podcast has a
Yeah,
Facebook page. But I'm like, my fun place, my place where I go when I want to relax is Book Talk.
same. I'm the same, 100% the same. So Instagram, I'm a bit like, I have to update it. But BookTok, I'm like, yes, let's go. Let's go and talk to people. Let's do this. This energy is unrivaled when it comes to BookTok.
It's so true. And the community is so supportive. Like you said, like we get excited to go out there and read other indie authors' work. We don't necessarily, I mean, we'll read what's on the top 100 too, but we want to know who's up and coming, what's out there. We want to support other artists. So
I'm the
it's
same,
yeah,
100%.
awesome. Well, I will make sure in the description to this video, if you're watching on YouTube, or description to the podcast, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, to link everybody up to Summer's information and her Book Talk handle, if you're okay with that, Summer.
Of course, go ahead.
Absolutely. We'll let everybody know how they can reach you, follow you, and support you on your journey to getting Intense published. And
Thank you.
thank you so much for talking with us today.
It's okay. No
Wonderful.
problem.
Everybody, please make sure you like and subscribe and hit that bell button. That's the only way you're going to get notifications when we chat with amazing authors like Summer. And everybody stay reading.